You grab your keys. You say goodbye. Maybe you don't, because you've learned that saying goodbye makes it worse. You close the door behind you. For about 3 seconds, there is silence. And then it starts. Most people picture their dog curled up somewhere comfortable, waiting, maybe sighing a little, maybe glancing at the door, patiently counting down the minutes until you're back. But behavioral science tells a completely different story. What happens inside your home the second you disappear, the sequence of behaviors, the neurological cascade, the decisions your dog makes in those first 4 minutes, is one of the most psychologically complex responses ever documented between two species. And most owners have absolutely no idea. Let's start with the waiting theory, because it sounds reasonable. You leave. Your dog waits. You come back. Simple. But here's the problem. Your dog is not waiting the way you wait for a delayed train. They are not mildly inconvenienced. They are not bored. What researchers have recorded, on cameras left running in thousands of homes across multiple countries, is something far more unsettling and far more profound than boredom. The first behavior recorded in the vast majority of dogs is not lying down. It's pacing. Door to window. Window to the spot where you were sitting. Back to the door. Nose working constantly, processing the air for the chemical trace of you. A trace that, in a typical home, begins degrading at a measurable rate the moment you leave. Your dog isn't just aware you're gone. They are tracking the evidence that you existed. So why does this matter? Because if this was simply about waiting for food, or routine, or the return of a walking schedule, your dog would have access to their bed, their toys, the couch, the warm patch of afternoon sun on the kitchen floor. They have every option available to them. And instead, they stand at the door and pace. That is not a dog waiting. That is a dog experiencing something much closer to what psychologists call separation distress, a state that, at the neurological level, looks almost identical to grief. Researchers at a major European university spent years adapting a test originally designed to study the bond between human infants and their mothers. The test works by measuring how a subject responds across 4 stages: the presence of a safe person, the introduction of a stranger, the safe person leaving, and finally, the safe person returning. When they ran this test on dogs, they expected to find something resembling mild preference. What they found instead stopped the field. Dogs exposed to their owner's departure showed measurable physiological stress responses within minutes. Not hours. Minutes. Their cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, spiked. Their heart rate elevated. And their behavior, the pacing, the whining, the environmental scanning, matched the pattern of a human infant separated from its primary caregiver with an accuracy that researchers described as striking. Approximately 80% of dogs tested showed what attachment theorists classify as a secure response: distress upon separation, visible relief upon reunion, and an immediate return to calm once the safe person was back in the room. That's not a dog that kind of likes you. That is a dog for whom your presence is, at the neurological level, a regulatory resource. You are not just their owner. You are a component of their nervous system's ability to function normally. When your dog paces behind the closed door, they are not being dramatic. They are responding to the removal of the one thing that makes their internal world feel stable. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because this isn't just psychology. It's chemistry. A research team published findings in one of the world's most prestigious scientific journals showing that when a dog and their owner interact, specifically when they make eye contact, both of them experience a measurable surge in oxytocin simultaneously. Oxytocin is the neurochemical released when a mother holds her newborn for the first time. It is the molecule behind trust, bonding, and the biological compulsion to stay close to someone you love. The dog's oxytocin rises. The owner's oxytocin rises, which makes the dog want to stay near the owner, which releases more oxytocin, which deepens the bond, which makes the separation, when it comes, feel chemically, not just emotionally, destabilizing. The researchers tested the same interaction with wolves raised in captivity by humans. The loop did not activate at all. This is not a generalized mammal response. This co-evolved specifically between domestic dogs and humans, over thousands of years of living alongside each other. It does not exist in any other animal relationship on Earth. Now consider what this means for the moment you leave. Your dog is not just losing your company. They are losing the primary trigger of a neurochemical loop their brain has been running, in some form, every day of their life. The drop in oxytocin following separation is real. It is measurable, and it is one of the reasons the first 4 minutes after you leave are the most behaviorally intense. When did dogs start caring whether humans leave? The answer is, from the very beginning of what dogs are. Roughly 15,000 years ago, before agriculture, before writing, before the concept of property, wolves began approaching the edges of human camps. The ones that didn't flee. The ones whose nervous systems were slightly more tolerant of proximity to a large, unpredictable primate. Those wolves survived better. They ate the scraps. They passed on that tolerance. Generation by generation, the gap between wolf and human closed. At an archaeological site dated to over 14,000 years ago, researchers found the burial of 2 humans. Buried alongside them, 2 dogs. One of those dogs showed skeletal evidence of having survived a severe illness. The kind of illness, researchers noted, that would have required weeks of dedicated nursing care to survive. Someone, 14,000 years ago, sat with a sick dog and kept it alive. These were not tools. They were not security systems. They were family. And the evidence is written into the genome. Domestic dogs carry specific genetic variants, located on a chromosome associated with social bonding and approach behavior toward humans, that wolves do not have. Dogs were not trained to want to be near us. They were shaped, at the level of their DNA, to need it. When your dog paces the house after you leave, they are not misbehaving. They are doing something encoded across 15,000 years of shared history. Now I want to tell you about a study that nobody talks about, because the finding seems impossible at first. Researchers installed cameras in the homes of dog owners and monitored dog behavior during extended absences of 4 or more hours. They measured activity levels, vocalization, destructive behavior, and physiological stress markers. The data was, objectively, distressing. The majority of dogs showed elevated stress responses for significant portions of the absence. Many engaged in repetitive behaviors, circling, door scratching, window vigil, that in humans would meet clinical criteria for anxiety. And yet, when the same owners were surveyed about how they imagined their dog spent the day, nearly all of them said, "Fine, probably sleeping." How is that possible? Because dogs are extraordinarily skilled at concealing their distress from the one person most likely to cause them to feel it. The return of the owner triggers such a rapid neurochemical reset, that cortisol to oxytocin switch, that by the time you walk through the door, your dog's body is already celebrating. The distress, for them, is functionally erased by your presence. What this means is that the behavior you never see, the pacing, the vigil, the environmental scanning, may be the most honest expression of how much you matter to your dog. Maybe your dog isn't struggling because something is wrong with them. Maybe they're struggling because something is very right about what they feel for you. A study published recently monitored the heart rate variability, one of the most sensitive measures of autonomic nervous system regulation, of dog-owner pairs across multiple conditions, together, separated, reunited, and at rest. Heart rate variability, for context, is the measure of how your nervous system is actually functioning. High variability means you are regulated, calm, and resilient. Low variability means your stress response is engaged. What the researchers found was this: during separation, dogs showed a measurable drop in heart rate variability. Their autonomic nervous systems shifted toward a stress response state. But the more striking finding was at reunion. Within minutes of the owner's return, the dog's heart rate variability began climbing back toward baseline. Not because anything physically changed in the environment, but because the owner was there. They tested the same measurements with dogs placed in the care of an unfamiliar person. The recovery did not occur. The nervous systems stayed dysregulated. This only happens within bonded pairs. Your presence, specifically yours, is capable of biologically regulating another creature's nervous system. Not as metaphor, not as sentiment, as measurable physiological fact. Leaving your dog is not just a social event. And coming home is not just a greeting. It is a neurological restoration. There is one last thing I need to tell you, and it may be the most important part of this video. If your dog has always shown separation behavior, the greeting at the door, the excitement of your return, the visible relief when you're home, and one day that stops, do not brush it off. Dogs are creatures of deeply established pattern. When a behavior that has been consistent for months or years disappears, there is always a reason. Sometimes it is environmental. A change in your schedule, a new person in the home, a shift in the household's energy. Dogs are seismographically sensitive to changes in their social world. Something that registers as minor to you can read as profound disruption to them. But sometimes it is physical. Veterinary researchers have documented that changes in greeting behavior, the failure to come to the door, the absence of the reunion response, can appear weeks before any visible physical symptom. Before limping, before visible pain, the behavior changes first. And in older dogs, the loss of established emotional routines is the primary early marker of canine cognitive dysfunction. It affects an estimated 1 in 3 dogs over the age of 10. The dog who used to pace the house while you were gone, and no longer does, is not necessarily more relaxed. They may simply be less able to hold the continuity of your absence in their mind. Your dog has no language. Behavior is the only way they can tell you something has changed. Pay attention to what disappears. So the next time you reach for your keys, the next time you hesitate at the door because you know what comes after, remember what's actually happening on the other side of it. 15,000 years of coevolution. A neurochemical loop that exists in no other interspecies relationship on Earth. An attachment system so precise it can regulate a separate nervous system just by walking into a room. All of it encoded into one animal, pointed at one person. You. And the science is clear about something else, too. That dysregulation your dog experiences when you leave? The research strongly suggests it flows in both directions. Your nervous system notices the absence too, even when you're too busy to feel it. Coming home is not just good for your dog. It might be medicine for both of you. If this changed how you think about what happens when you close that door, subscribe and drop a comment below. I want to know, how long do you leave your dog each day?